Welcome to the CentreCourt MBA Festival with Poets and Quants. I'm Matt Symonds, the Director of Fortuna Admissions, and with my co-host John Byrne, we're delighted to welcome you to the final CentreCourt of 2022. In the last 2 years, the panels and workshops of CentreCourt have been viewed over 30 million times. And we're very grateful to all of you for your support and for joining us as you plan your next steps on your own MBA journey. Over the next 3 days, John and I will welcome admissions directors and career services directors from over 25 of the world's leading business schools. So we'll take a deep dive into the programs, the personalities of each school, get a better sense of the distinct strengths and characteristics of each MBA program, find out, of course, what you can do to shine in this admissions process, and then discuss some of the fantastic outcomes that the MBA class of 2022 are now enjoying and pursuing. We start on day one with an international focus, hosting the very best business schools from Europe. And in a couple of hours, I'll be joined by the gatekeepers from the London Business School, IMD, ESA, and Cambridge Judge. But to get us started, it's my enormous pleasure to welcome three great supporters of CentreCourt from the best of Northern Europe, and as INSEAD will remind us, the best of the world. So we have Vasily Zaravelas. Vasily is the Associate Director of Recruitment and Admissions at the Rotterdam School of Management, RSM, that the Condé Nast Traveller magazine described Rotterdam as one of the coolest and hippest cities in Europe, and Vasily will tell us about the 50-year history of the school. Berlin, boy, do I wish that I'd bought that little studio apartment in Berlin the first time that I visited the wonderful ESMT campus. Of course, it's this extraordinarily dynamic city right at the heart of Europe, and we're joined by Rebecca Loades, the Director of Career Accelerator Programs. And then INSEAD, my reminder that it is the business school for the world in Fontainebleau, Abu Dhabi, Singapore, and of course a campus on the West Coast, San Francisco. And it's always lovely to welcome Virginie Fougia, the Global Director of Admissions and Financial Aid. Virginie, perhaps we can start with you and that beautiful green map. No doubt you have alumni in many, many points on that map. There was what, 60 or 70,000. Perhaps we just start with a general introduction of INSEAD, the missions of the school, perhaps its values, its reputation, and those 4 locations.
Yes, thank you very much for having us, Matt, and for organizing this. So it's a pleasure to be with you today. So indeed, a campus in Abu Dhabi, Singapore, and in France, in Fontainebleau, about 60 kilometers outside of Paris, and a hub in San Francisco. The idea for us with those campuses was to have the possibility for people to travel to those locations and really meet people who are on the ground, professionals, and not just teach in the classroom, but also give opportunity to really be talking to people on the ground. So that was the idea with this. And then in terms of, so linked to this, obviously there is this statement where we feel that we want to bring people together in the classroom or in those campuses to transform the world. We have this hope, hoping that it goes through business. So we transform business and society through our students and future alumni. With that said, so INSEAD was founded about 60 years ago, in the midst of post-Second World War, and with this idea of already bringing people and different cultures to the classroom. So the diversity in terms of nationalities and culture is dear to our heart, with this year about 76 nationalities. Different nationalities in the MBA class. We all have an accent, like I do, but it's about 20% of the class who has English, who is English native speaker, and this is for the fact that it's really important for us to have different perspectives and bring this diversity in the classroom. So that's covering a little bit of history, but also values as we feel that bringing people allows people to get a better understanding of each other rather than judging or offending. It's really more, we see it as a challenging discussion rather than offending and going to something that is a lot more benevolent and exchanging and understanding each other than just misunderstanding that can happen sometimes in a very tricky situation like we live in Europe at the moment. Political and geopolitical challenges, I mean.
You remind me, Virginie, of how privileged I am to work in this industry. You talk about a school that is transforming the world. And when we think about those values of respect, of tolerance, of innovation, truly our business schools are extraordinary students and graduates, the research that is transforming the world and transforming Germany too, Rebecca. Of course, go back 20 years and Germany wasn't a big player in the European business education landscape. But then there was ESMT Berlin and the journey that you've been on. Tell us a little bit about the school and that impact that you're having.
Thank you. Yes, and it's pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. And actually, this year is our 20th anniversary. So this year, ESMT hits 20, one more year and we can legally drink. So we are in the heart of Berlin. We were actually founded, our origin story, so to speak, is that a CEO of a famous German company was on a plane, looking through the in-flight magazine, and there was an article about MBA rankings, looked down the list and was shocked not to see a single German business school in that list. So, as all of these landed, immediately got on the phone to his colleagues, other CEOs at other industries, other companies, and said, we need to start a business school. We need to be in this list. And so therefore, ESMT, this is our founding story. 25 different German companies and organizations came together to found us. And so we really kind of started from there with the full-time MBA, was the first program that we actually developed and delivered. Like 18 years ago, we moved into the beautiful building, which you can see behind me. So this is the former Republic, or the council building of the East German government. And so therefore, this has played kind of quite a pivotal moment in history. And it also illustrates, to your point, around how much things have changed in Germany and what makes it a particularly exciting place to work and to study. And so ESMT, our values are that we want to create responsible leaders. And so that's really taking into account what's going on in the world and how can we create, very much, in terms like INSEAD, how can we create transformations through learning and development of the students in our courses and in our programs. Our core values are around community, courage, curiosity, and rigor. And so those are things which you will see echoed throughout the program, bundled in a very entrepreneurial and dynamic school, which really reflects the Berlin scene that we're part of. And so it's and also I guess the one caveat I will say is that we are very international. And one of the things which is wonderful about moving to Berlin, if you're not gifted linguistically, is that you do not need to learn German in order to live and to thrive in Berlin.
Wie schade. Well, you've both got us off to this incredibly positive and enthusiastic start. The next time on an airplane, I will read that in-flight magazine far more attentively. Who knows where that could take us? Exactly. Vasily, I love the RSM statement about being a force for positive change. How does that capture the spirit of the Rotterdam School of Management?
Great, Matt, thank you so much. Great pleasure to be here today. Indeed, for us as well, being a force of positive change is also through leadership, through transforming people in making and having a positive impact around them. It's not only about how you grow as an individual and as a professional, but it's also how you help others around you, the society, your environment, to grow with you. And I think this is instilled in our school for the past a little bit over 50 years now that we've been that we launched RSM. RSM is part of Erasmus University. So I think by just hearing the name, you can understand how diverse, how international, how open-minded and entrepreneurial also the school is. We're based in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, an international hub. Similar to what Rebecca mentioned as well, if you're not linguistically gifted, again, I'm a prime example, been living there for 15 years and still my Dutch is not the greatest. So again, I think that Dutch are very open to different cultures, and we do embrace diversity. We do embrace the difference in people, and you can also see that in our program. We have right now one of the most international cohorts in the world. Year over year, 99% of our students are coming from abroad. So again, very proud to be part of this group and this school. So yeah, great to be here.
Great. There was a great piece in Poets and Quants a few days ago talking to a couple of American applicants to business school who said, you know, I just wanted to experience something different. Now, Virginie, you talk about over 70 nationalities. The dean, Ilian Mihoff, sort of shares the idea that everybody is a minority because there is no one dominant culture in the school. So as our viewers are thinking about their next steps, how would you sort of summarize the key differentiators of the MBA program? Intensive, 1 year, you work hard, you play hard, but that international dimension that can make such a difference.
I think, yes, so you have a point by saying so this is international. This is definitely a key differentiator, and it's just the way you see it is by walking down through the campus, and you see the different languages. You hear different languages and different people talking in their native tongue, but it's also more importantly in the program content. So when you have very diverse cohort like this, it pushes the faculty teaching on those different programs to be aware of how it is to conduct business in different part of the world. So the beauty of having this diversity is that you can definitely challenge people on well, this would work in the US or this would work in France, but this is actually not working in the Southeast Asia or in that industry. So this is really what is interesting, and the part of a real key differentiator for us is to have not only just in the statistics of where people are coming from or the number of nationalities, but more importantly in the DNA itself, and it's very subtle. It's things that you don't measure. It's just happening naturally because you have a discussion with somebody who is from a military background in Israel and somebody who will come from a very diverse, different environment in Australia, for example, as a medical doctor, and they can then have this sort of discussions that is enriching. And this is a key differentiator for us because we have this part of the DNA of the school, and this is a beauty of my role to be able to open the door. People say that we are the gatekeeper, but I'm actually the door opener to this people with so many different backgrounds, not just in terms of nationality, and this willingness to share. So I think this is a true key differentiator in what we teach and the content that is when you go out of a classroom and you feel, well, I heard so many examples from my peers coming from so different backgrounds, not just consulting or finance, but it's actually also from the pharmaceutical industry or from the automobile, and then it's really starts to be very, very enriching and enlightening in some cases, and inspiring.
We'll talk about how to open those doors to your three schools a little bit later in the panel. Back to the origin story at ESMT, Rebecca, because the M and the T brought together management and technology. You've also underlined that entrepreneurial ecosystem that's part of the Berlin scene. And I suppose this is another aspect of how individuals from all of those different backgrounds that Virginie was describing can then explore themes of management and technology, entrepreneurship, all in one place, all in 1 year.
Yes, yeah, and I think when, building on that, one of the things that we're really emphasizing, and I think is one of a real strength of ESMT, is around entrepreneurship and innovation, as you mentioned, but also sustainability. And that's actually reflected in two initiatives which have their roots from a couple of years ago, but are now really starting to accelerate. The first is we have launched a new Institute for Sustainable Transformation. We have around a quarter of our MBA content is actually touching on ESG topics. We want to make that more. And so therefore part of the future institute is we will be walking the talk. We're looking across the entire school. How can we change this? What impact is this having on the education we're providing so that we can create those responsible leaders of tomorrow that we pledge that we will do? And the second, and this is really where we tie on the M and the T coming together, combined with the entrepreneurship. If you say E instead of Europe, let's do entrepreneurship. We are launching this year. We're now the 12th globally, the Creative Destruction Lab. This is a phenomenal way of helping startups or kind of early stage businesses who are leveraging deep technology, so fundamental research and commercializing that, particularly in the life sciences. This is our first focus, helping them come into the market, and all students get to actually benefit from being supporting those businesses through that process. So this is a way in which you not only can see the ESMT values and where we are, but students get that directly reflected in their educational experience within the program. And so it's a phenomenal learning opportunity that again speaks to the M and the T in the ESMT name.
I've now got entrepreneurship, sustainability, management, and technology in mind. I'll never go back to the original. All three of your schools offer a one-year program. And Vasily, this, of course, is more of a European and international phenomenon. I'm thinking, well, how do you fit it all in? You welcome the incoming class in January, and then 12 extraordinarily busy months. Is there time for exploration, looking at different career options and, just perhaps things that you haven't had the chance to explore in 4, 5, 6 very busy early years of your professional life?
Yeah, no, I think indeed, as we said before, the one-year programs are extremely busy, quite hectic, but I think the way that we have also managed to build the curriculum, it does give the opportunity to people to explore different options and different things while being in the program. Within the program, we have built the Living Management Project, as we call it. Students have the opportunity to work directly with companies for a whole month as external consultants, so they can also have that hands-on experience. We also offer 1 week of an international study tour abroad, and they also have the opportunity to go for an exchange if they want to at the end, instead of doing the electives at our school. So it is quite a pressure cooker, as I would call it, in a year's time. But there are a lot of opportunities, a lot of options for students to explore different pathways and different things like they would like to do in the future. The curriculum is built also in a way that they have access to focus either on finance, on strategy, on sustainability. So again, they get all the tools that they will need for them to explore things that they haven't been able to touch upon the last 4 or 5 years of their professional experience.
Right. The top business schools publish every year their incoming class profiles, which Virginie, in INSEAD's case, both the September and the January class start. So you have 2 of those. Typically, it will capture average GPA, average GMAT and GRE scores, the average age, maybe where they studied. But take me beyond that, because I sometimes think it's reductive. If the average age was 29, average GMAT score 710, and people are saying, well, I'm 27 or I'm 31, I have 20 points more or less. So go beyond the incoming class profile, perhaps to talk about the diversity that is embedded, where people are coming from and that breadth of experience.
Yeah, but thank you for highlighting that these numbers are just numbers, and there is more than this. So it's a conversation that I have regularly with prospective applicants, because they indeed say, well, I'm 22, but I feel this is now the right moment to do my MBA at INSEAD. And we are happy to be convinced by those outliers, I would say, or people that come with a different background. So it can be earlier in the career, it can be later in the career. It can be like a slightly longer work experience, so people who would have 12 or 13 years of work experience, where the average is 5.9. So this is why I think it's important to indeed look beyond the numbers and attend sessions like the one you are organizing. And what we do, in fact, is usually we are happy to be convinced, first of all. So if we see people who are coming with a different background that will be like in the 12 years of work experience, for example, we look at why is that 12 years and why is that happening now? And typically we see people with military background coming to us after more years than people who would have had a more traditional business route, where you climb the ladder, and almost every 2 years it's expected of you that you would climb the ladder and get a promotion, for example. And some corporations, some companies will work totally differently, and in the industry sector, it's very possible to stay 4 or 5 years in the same role before you get an additional responsibility or accountability. And the way we look at this is really by looking at the content. So beyond the numbers, the content, the responsibilities is very important. This is the reason why we have the letters recommendation, because people will explain in the job description, they will give us dimension, they will explain that I'm responsible for this budget, or I'm responsible for this number of people, but then what does that require, the sort of skills, and how is that important within the company ecosystem, or how is that important for the company to operate. And so for this reason, we look beyond the numbers and see through the job question, through the letters of recommendation, through the interviews as well, we see what it means. And at the end of the day, we're happy to be convinced that, yes, you have been in the company for 10 years, or on the contrary, you're still very, very early in your career. But for this reason, and you do have the opportunity to explain this in the essays or in the interview, we are happy to be told, well, this is for me the right moment, because then I want to go on to this and I want to try this, and then admit people that could be younger or older. So definitely help us look beyond the numbers.
And the idea, Rebecca, perhaps, it's not just bankers and consultants, it's not just people that studied engineering at undergrad, that diversity. Just talking about that, and perhaps also add the idea of, do they need to know what's next? Do they have to have life all sort of mapped out? Of course, where an MBA fits at this point. So talk through, how people can best share their diverse backgrounds.
I think so. I think actually my one message to anyone who is considered applying to ESMT, but I also suspect that this applies to INSEAD and RSM, so I'm not conclaving anything, is effectively around authenticity. So this is around actually presenting who you are to us versus who you think that we wish to see during the admission process. Because there is an art to creating a class, and you are considered, we're evaluating you, but also we're thinking about how we can help you. So yes, we do want to know, where are you thinking? What would you like to do? We're not expecting you to have your life mapped out, or to say, I'm going to be doing this, this, and this, but understanding what your motivation is. Why have you chosen to invest in yourself? How committed are you also to not only your own development, but also to the development of those people that you're studying with? As Virginie and Vasilia said, we all three schools have really international classes, and that value and that utility means that you're learning from centuries, and it's literally centuries of experience in that lecture room, as well as the faculty who's there to help tease that out. And so therefore, what's really important is that you are an active participant who is going to contribute to your MBA journey and those of your fellow students. So therefore, we also want to, to the point around life planning, we want to know how this fits, because we also want to make certain that we can help you achieve that. Because I think it would be very disingenuous of us as an institution to say, yeah, come in and study, even though this is not something we can't help you achieve the goals that you wish to achieve. And we are very honest about that, because we want to make certain that, as an individual, you're investing time, you're investing money, you're investing psychologically, you're moving into Germany, you're moving into France, you're moving into the Netherlands, you're making some really big, significant life shifts, and we want to make sure that that's worth it. So therefore, it really is a case of understanding more about you as an individual and how we can help.
Extending that idea, Vasily, there are so many options now in graduate management education. Already at RSM, you've got a top-ranked Masters in Management program, early career, Masters in Finance, you have MSCs in climate, tremendous portfolio of programs. Where do you think that the MBA sits specifically? Someone that already has 4, 6, 12 years of experience, as Virginie was describing. So actually, this is the right program, this immersive 1-year full-time program, and why it makes sense for me.
That's a very good question, Matt. I think, again, it has to do about the candidates being able to reach out to the school, have that discussion. I'm going to steal something that you mentioned a couple of years ago. We are called admissions department. So we are here to admit people. We're not here to reject people. So we're here to have that discussion. And a lot of people are taking the first step today in an event like this. Probably later on, they will reach out to different schools. So we're here to help you, to help people and advise them what is the best fit. It's not about trying to get people just towards the MBA route. In my opinion, and I'm talking from personal experience, I've done a master's at a later stage of my life. And for me, that was not the best fit, because when you do have 4, 5, 6 years of professional working experience, the master's programs, unless if you're looking for something very specific, would not be the best fit. That is my personal opinion. The MBA will be able to give you a far broader perspective, a far broader understanding of the entire business, and it can help you in the next stage of your career. But again, it will boil down to the individual. It has to be a two-way fit. We are here to discuss and see whether you're a fit for us, but I always give that advice to candidates. Try to see if the school is a good fit for you as well. It's like going into a job interview. Of course, you want to be able to sell yourself in the best possible way, but at the end of the day, you're making that investment, as Rebecca mentioned, of time and money. So you want to make sure that this is the best choice for you, whether that's going to be an MBA or a master's, if you feel that's better.
So that it's fresh in our viewers' mind, I'd love to conclude our panel today with some of the different ways with your teams, with such loyal and enthusiastic alumni. There are many, many ways that we can have that point of contact with your institutions. But imagining that we're starting this journey and thinking about applying to ESMT, to RSM, or to INSEAD, Virginie, we'll start with INSEAD, because a school that has over 75 nationalities in the MBA program must have at least 75 nationalities of recommenders writing letters of recommendation. I often scratch my head thinking, if I had a recommender from Finland, they're not usually the most effusive personality. So perhaps we can just start there, approaching somebody to provide insight, perspectives on you as an individual, to help you in the admissions office best understand them. So what's your guidance of who to ask and the sort of things that you love to discover in a strong letter of recommendation?
I like your point about the nationality, but it's and the fact that some people may be tougher or on the contrary more encouraging. This is something, as Rebecca said, this is the art of admission. So we know how to read between the lines, and sometimes when people are just ecstatic, and the words are just incredible, and we know how to interpret. So this is important, but I think it comes back to a very important element, regardless of the nationality of the recommender. I think it's important to just explain the story and explain to your recommenders why you want to do this. So it's not just the admissions committee that you will have to convince, but it's also your recommenders. And because otherwise they might find it very, very difficult to answer the questions that we ask. The questions are related to leadership skills, and by definition they are soft skills, and by definition they are the hardest to comment on. It's not like it's not like it's something you can measure. This is the reason why we really encourage people to go to their the recommenders they have chosen, ideally for INSEAD from a professional background, because again the competencies we are looking at are related to a professional context. And also because people are on average 29-year-old and have left the academics for a while. So we see professional letters of recommendation being very useful, and people who know people well, applicants well, and for that it's important to keep in touch with your recommenders, explain why you want to do an MBA, why in this school. It's really a missed opportunity when we have an INSEAD letter of recommendation with somebody saying, oh, I recommend this applicant for ESMT. Though I get along with Rebecca well. So this is the reason why we strongly encourage people to really do their due diligence when they speak with their recommenders. So that will be my 2 cents for to start with.
Yeah, because on a resume, a CV, Rebecca, there are lots of bullet points, but there are lots of white spaces, and perhaps what Virginie is describing of bringing color and life to all of those bullet points. On a resume, candidates sometimes wonder, well, my job title, it doesn't talk about being a leader, and INSEAD, ESMT are looking for those sort of habits of leadership. So what is your advice as someone then thinks about how best to capture the accomplishments, the development, both personal and professional, that they've enjoyed on a CV?
I think you have to think about not just the CV though, because the CV is one element of an application package, but it's actually, we're looking at you holistically as a candidate, because your CV will tell one story, but your CV may not say that you're doing volunteering work. Let's say that you're involved in a particular initiative. That's not necessarily going to be something that you can easily surface on a CV, because we do say we try to keep CVs no more than 2 pages. And obviously depending on where you are in the world, you may have come from, in the US, I think a resume is typically a 1 page. So therefore, how can you expect that 1 page to reflect who you really are? Which is why we also have application questions designed to give you an opportunity to show us a bit more about who you are. So what are your values? What are the things that you are doing? How are you embodying the values that you say that you hold? And how can you show a bit of your personality in that, so that we start to get a hint? And of course we interview. So therefore you've got the paper, but then it's also, it's like applicants, we interview. If we look at your original kind of submission and we think that, yes, you're someone that we're interested in, then we interview all of you. And so that's something that's really important. And exactly to Vasily's point around, this is a 2-way experience. This is not just us asking you questions. This is like, grill us, ask us stuff that is not on our website, find out a little bit more, help us understand kind of how you think and how you will approach things, because that's the kind of like what gets us excited and touches on the art. So I would say that you have multiple opportunities in your application to give us more information than we would see necessary on a single CV, and also to bring yourself and show yourself and who you are and what you'll bring to the program and to the study experience.
Rebecca has brought into the discussion, Vasilis, the idea of values and perhaps commitments that people have made, things that they stand for or truly believe in. For a school like RSM that has as a mission statement, being a force for positive change, how do you look to capture that sense of values and perhaps the things that matter most to an individual?
That's a very good question. Actually, one of our application requirements is for the candidate to write an essay around the topic on how they have been, give us an example about how they have been a force of positive change in their lives, or how they think that the program will equip them to become one in the future. Most of the times people select the former. And again, from that example, we're not looking for something huge. It can be something even small. As Rebecca mentioned, it can be like a small volunteering project that somebody was involved in the last few years and during their professional life as well. So they need to go and dig deep into understanding what sort of an impact they had, even to one person or to a community. We've had this as well in our candidates, but it's being authentic. And again, that's a very important value that I think all schools share here, right? About being able to show your authentic self. At the end of the day, being able to learn also for the future to become a force of positive change, to be an influential leader, to transform businesses, you need to be, first of all, authentic to yourself. So that's critical. So through that, we're able, in line, of course, with the additional elements that they need to provide us, to be able to put all the pieces of the puzzle together and understand the candidate better. Just one last my 2 cents as well here. I would say to all candidates, try to tailor make the application according to the school. Apart from, making sure that you're not writing, ESMT on the RSM application letter, it's also important that even from the CV that you tailor make that CV according to what you think INSEAD is looking for, to what ESMT or RSM is looking for.
Twice a year, Virginie, you get to welcome all of these individuals brought to life. You know them through paper, through interviews. It must be an overwhelming day for them, that first day. We often talk about imposter syndrome, where you think maybe everybody else is smarter than I am, they've got higher test scores than I do, their experience. So how do you like to encourage individuals that perhaps don't come from a traditional feeder firm, heading to business school? Maybe they were the first person in their family, to go to university. That there are so many ways to trust you in doing your job, to be able to see the qualities. How do you sort of encourage people and build their self-confidence to say, no, really, there's a place for you here?
That's a good point. Actually, one secret here. I have been within this industry for more than 25 years now, and this is humbling. This is really, really, really impressive, the number of people we meet with so many different backgrounds, people with achievements, but also people with their weaknesses, people with their challenges, people that have experienced moments in their life where they had doubts, where they experienced moments where they felt, well, I will never succeed in this environment. I need to change, or I need to get exposed to something else and quit. Or so really here, what I'm getting to is we learn through the successes, but we also learn through challenging moments. And what we are interested in is the resilience, because what admission people are looking at is we kind of extrapolate, and we feel like, okay, this person has had this sort of experience where it was tough, but then that enables us to capitalize and feel like this person will be able to adapt in another environment, or will be able to adapt to or to be flexible. And once you have had this sort of challenging moments, this is where you become flexible. This is where we can understand how you can stretch yourself. And hence this is by when to answer a little bit of a long answer to answer your question, this is not just by saying I have managed to do this, I have had this sort of achievements, but to Vasily's point, this is by being authentic and by showcasing what are your values, what you have done. We are all different. We have had all different stories. And by sharing these stories, naturally, you will be able to convince an admissions committee. You will be able to say, I belong to this place. So it comes, in fact, a lot more naturally than what people think. But rather than by saying, I need to showcase this, or I need to tell the admissions committee that I did that. Yes, but also tell us things that you're maybe less proud of, or things that have taught you something. Because it's not, an application form is not just bragging about yourself. It's more an in-depth introspection and reflection of what you have done and what is taking you here. And by doing this, I think people manage to really showcase and do a very, very compelling application.
Right. And that assessment of how they will then, what they will bring, energy and ideas and engagement to the community. The interview, Rebecca, must be a great way to showcase, but perhaps advice, because you can get nervous in interviews. I mean, Zoom doesn't make it any easier, right? We don't have those same sort of physical clues. So what do you say? Take a breath. How do you organize the interview to really then help that individual in front of you to shine?
So what we do for all of our interviews, so effectively what we they're 45 minutes to an hour, and it's flexibility. So it's there's no fixed particular duration. It's like, let's just take the time that we need, because that's important. And of course, you're going to be nervous. To be honest, I interview some of the candidates, so I'm not in admissions. So, however, I am sometimes brought into an interview and I'm nervous, let alone how they're feeling. So it's like the mutual recognition of a shared emotion and experience. And really, it's, exactly to the point where you may screw up an answer, and that's okay. This is about a conversation. This is about a dialogue and about learning from each other. And so therefore, actually, it's very much a version we're talking about, exhibiting a growth mindset, humility, being prepared to say, being quite honest about yourself, who am I? Okay, this is the stuff I'm good at. This is, I screwed up. I made a mistake here. So I'd say that for the interview, we're going to be asking you about your career, what you want to do. And I think all of us probably asked that at an interview. So there are some standard things, tell me your history. So these are things that as a candidate, you can get ready of like, okay, I'm probably going to have to give a 2-minute summary of my life to date. Let me think about what I want to pull out. Let me think about a couple of questions about the program or about the school, which I can't find out by other means. And this does not rely on nerves. You can have those written down of like, actually, I'd like to learn more about this. Or maybe there's a particular aspect of the program you want to dig into. These are all things we can help with. And so therefore, I would say that nerves, we're going to have them. Nerves actually show that we care as well. So actually seeing a candidate who's nervous, it's quite heartening, because it means that this is something that's important. We all suffer from them, and this is not supposed to be a tortuous thing. If you've got an interview stage, then this means that we are really interested in you. And so therefore, this is almost like a bit of a hygiene factor of let's find out more, let's get to know and make certain that this is the right fit. So I'd say it's almost like a bit of a first date where you're hoping that you get invited to a second one.
Right. You've also reassured me, because just an hour ago, I always get very nervous before we start the CentreCourt festivals. We've done many, many of them with John, but I do love to think that it's because we care so much. Vasily, as we look at the current job market, particularly in North America, the opportunity cost of going to business school is considerable, and yet at the same time, the dollar has just gone up and up and up. The euro, the pound have not. So I'm looking at a one-year program in Europe, and I'm saying, already I think it offers an extraordinary return on the investment that an individual is making. So just in terms of finances, perhaps even scholarships, but just making the numbers work. It's always a good time to invest in yourself, right?
Yeah, definitely. For me, when you invest in your education, it's always a great thing, and the ROI might come in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years. It's going to follow you for the rest of your career. But indeed, looking into the one-year programs that most of the European schools offer, it's a great investment, and especially when you combine it with the fact that you'll get the international exposure. And when you combine it with the fact that you're given the opportunity to potentially spend more time afterwards in Europe and getting a job in Europe, and I think all of our countries, Germany, France, and the Netherlands, are very open in keeping international students working here. We have a lot of international companies based in our countries. So I would say putting everything together, because again, it is a significant investment, especially for people coming from developing economies. So we are able to, I think all of our schools were able to provide that in the return that people are looking for, financially wise, but also outside of financial terms, it's also that international exposure they will receive. And that for me, it's priceless. Being able to spend at least 1 year in places like Paris, like Berlin, like Rotterdam, it gives you and equips you with tools and with networks as well that they will stay with you for life. So how can you also put a price tag on the network of all these individuals that you'll be studying together with, like 70 different nationalities, different backgrounds? These people, they will stay with you for your entire career, that you can always reach out.
Right, it's a great answer. And if I were to ask the alumni at any of your schools, Virginie, if I asked one of many tens of thousands of alumni at INSEAD, what really struck them about the experience, great career outcomes, this international network, what often then comes back? What are even perhaps the unexpected things they learned about themselves or about the school?
Yes, that's true. They also mention for those who are career changers. So, for example, I recently had a discussion with a lady. She had an undergrad in international politics, and she wanted to. She had her business knowledge in working in tech companies in Brazil and in the US, and she wanted to get exposed to something else than this, and having this business acumen in another environment. So I see people telling us that they choose INSEAD in addition to the international or diversity that was mentioned earlier, to get exposed to something else that they have been exposed to up until now. And very often this is for the career changers. I like to say, they usually tell me it's because they want to give it a try and see whether they would like it at some point in their career. So this is the reason why we have people who would like to be an entrepreneur at some point in their career, or would like to make a shift, and they come in an MBA, they get exposed to so many different things and flavors, and then they decide on what is next post MBA, but also 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road. So I know you have a session on careers after, but this is the reason why we see people coming to us and telling us this is what I got, and that surprises me all the time.
Yeah, and our viewers, stay with us, because as Virginie mentions, in 10 minutes, John will be sitting down with the career services directors of the 3 schools, looking at extraordinary breadth of outcomes. People, it feels that emerging slowly from a pandemic, people that are really hungry for change and want to enact that. So Rebecca, as we're thinking about sort of next steps, reaching out to you, what are the key things that you suggest to anyone thinking about an MBA at the ESMT, at one of the top European business schools, as they think about the program that might be the best fit for them?
I would recommend reaching out, because all of us, and I'm going to say INSEAD and RSM as well, we really enjoy having conversations with candidates to explore, to help them. We are here to to talk to you, to understand. To your question to Vasilis, earlier, we all have diverse portfolios. So therefore, you may come to us talking about program A, we have a conversation and we discover that actually maybe program B would be a better fit based on what you want to do. And that kind of personal touch, we are a small school. We know all of our students, which could be good and bad. So there is no escaping. And it's really that personal touch, which we definitely pride ourselves on. And so therefore, reach out, watch webinars, it's like, have a look at the website, have a conversation. And really, that's the starting point for your journey with the ESMT Berlin.
Right. And Vasily, in terms of conversations, perhaps visiting the campus, you and Brandon and other colleagues travel extensively and no doubt organize lots of digital events. So what do you recommend in terms of next steps and how our viewers can reach out to RSM?
Yeah, similar to what Rebecca mentioned, we're here to have those discussions. Right now, we are going to start traveling again, so really looking forward to that, to be able to travel around the world, and so people can also meet us in person in their home countries. So we're doing this throughout the year. We travel extensively with the whole team, so I think it's important. Come and find us. Let's have that discussion. Also, people can reach out to alumni or to current students, so they can also hear the stories from people who are doing or who have done the program. That's also extremely important to also understand and build that expectation in their minds on how is it doing an MBA at RSM or in any other top European university.
Any advice, Virginie, for reaching out to alums that they're all, living very full and busy, engaged lives, and they were in your position perhaps 3 years, 4 years, 8 years ago. So reaching out to them, obviously respecting their time, but how would you sort of recommend getting the most out of that interaction and a discussion with alums?
Getting the most is by getting ready, have questions prepared and having done your due diligence. If you just walk in saying, hey, so you graduated from INSEAD, how can I get in? Then that shows you really don't exactly understand who does what and how that works. But then on the contrary, do things like, so I see you have done your MBA after this sort of professional experience, or you have had this background before, and so it's doing your homework, looking at LinkedIn, looking within your company. Maybe there are people who have done an MBA, because it's not just about INSEAD, but it's also about the MBA itself. So by doing this sort of homework and looking at what is an MBA, what an MBA can bring in the career. When it's the best moment to do it. Some alumni will have a view on this as well. So it's by having this sort of questions that really can make the discussion insightful, that then it brings value. LinkedIn is very powerful, very helpful, and we're very happy to put people in touch as well. And sometimes we have niche background where people really want to have profiles that are similar to theirs, or on the contrary, completely different. We have both requests, and that we don't mind putting people in touch. So feel free to reach out.
Well, we've covered themes of resilience, curiosity, international mindedness. I suppose I'm struck with the three of you and your colleagues, over the last 2 very challenging years, bringing in classes in such uncertain circumstances. What might the future look like? And the class of 2022, if we ask them, it was one of the best decisions that they ever made. So is it the right time for you, the viewer, to go to business school? We'll start by reaching out, as you've just got a sense from these 3 wonderful ambassadors of their schools. They love to have those conversations with you, find out, share more about the school, find out more about you. And Rebecca did say, make it a 2-minute summary of your life. It doesn't need to be 22 minutes. So there's another final piece of advice. But to all of you, Vasily, Rebecca, Virginie, it's lovely to host you and have you with us for these CentreCourt events. Let's hope that 2023 is a very bright year with a next generation in changing the world, transforming the world, which I think is where we started today's panel. Thank you to all 3 of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.